Acing your WAEC and NECO examinations has been made easy by the Lagos State Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education with the Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO Candidates television program. Join seasoned teachers as they take you through these core subjects, targeting the exact syllabus of WAEC and NECO. Watch Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO candidates through these social media platforms to access more educational content and give their feedback. Eko Learners Support for WAEC and NECO candidates. Pass your examinations with flying colors.
Hello viewers. Welcome to today's edition of Eko Learner Support for WAEC and NECO candidates. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Salau Abubakar Olaoluwa. I will be taking you history. The topic we will be looking at today is the structure and organ of AU, which is the African Union. Today, we will be examining the structure and organ of African Union, and the structure and organs of African Union dictate how the organization operates and the functions each arms and organs of the organization perform for the actualization of the aims and objectives of the organization. At the end of today's learning, students will be able to 1. Examine the organs and structure of the African Union. 2. Highlight the functions each organ of the African Union performs. The first organ of the African Union we'll be looking at today is the Assembly. The Assembly is fully called the Assembly of Heads of States and Government, and this is the highest decision-making and highest organ of the organization. This assembly comprises of all leader and head of government of every member state or independent countries within the Africa. The organ, which is the assembly, is usually headed by the chairman, who is appointed among his peers for a 1-year period, which is renewable as they so wish, and which may not be reviewed according to how they so also wish. And this assembly usually meets once in a year, and they can also have an extraordinary session which can be called by the chairman of the African Union Commission if the need arises. Then we'll also now be looking at the functions of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government. The first function of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government is the admission of new member into the organization. It is at the Assembly of Heads of State and Government that they decide the acceptance or rejection of a new member who applies to be a member of the organization. Also, they elect the chairman and the chairperson of African Union Commission, who serves as the Secretary General of the organization. Also, they approve the structure, function of each of the organs of the organization. It is the Assembly of Heads of State and Government that determines how the organization operates. They are the one that will determine the policy directive and the function of each arms or department. And even when we look at the African Union Commission itself, they will be the one to determine how the African Union Commission is being structured and how they perform their structure. The next organ of the African Union we'll be looking at or we'll be examining today is the Executive Council. The Executive Council coordinate policy making and the proper implementation of the decision made by the Assembly of Heads of State and Government. The composition of the Executive Council is all the foreign minister of every member state, and the assembly usually meets twice in a year, and they also hold an extraordinary session if the need arises. And the Executive Council has its chairman and 3 vice chairman and a rapporteur, and this position is being held in line with the formation of the Assembly Bureau. It is important to know that the country who holds the chairman of the Assembly of Head of State and Government will also be the one that will also be the chairman of the Executive Council, which means if Nigeria happens to be the chairman of the African Union, the foreign minister of Nigeria will also equivalently serve as the chairman of the Executive Council of the organization. So we'll also now be looking at the functions of the Executive Council. The first one is that they arrange and prepare the agenda and the topic of discussion for the Assembly of Head of State and Government, which means they usually meet before the Assembly of Head of State and Government meet to actually prepare and arrange the discussion and the agenda they will be attending to in their meeting. Another one is that they also promoting cooperation and coordination with other regional organizations within Africa for synergy of activities, and also they are the one that also electing the member of the African Union Commission for appointment by the Assembly. They will be the one to actually screen the candidate for any position within the African Union Commission before this screened candidate will be sent to the Assembly of Heads of State and Government for ratification or final approval. And also, they ensure the promotion of gender equality in all activities and programs that the African Union actually does. And lastly, they coordinate all other organs of the African Union. The next organ of the African Union we will be examining today is the Permanent Representative Committee. The Permanent Representative Committee comprises of all permanent representatives that is being sent to the African Union by member states. These permanent representatives, they work like a full-time representative or full-time eyes and hands of each member state within the activities of the African Union. The committee conducts the day-to-day business of the AU on behalf of the Assembly and the Executive Council, and it prepares the Executive Council work and report directly to the Executive Council. Just like the composition of the Executive Council, the Permanent Representative Committee composition, the composition of the leadership of the Permanent Representative is also in line with that of the Assembly Bureau and the Executive Council. And it is important to know that the Permanent Representative Committee serves as an advisory council to the Executive Council and not as a supervisory to the African Union Commission. The functions of the Permanent Representative Council include the first one, which is and the most vital one, is the facilitation of communication between the African Union Commission, which is the headquarters, and member states. Also, they act as an advisory body to the AU Executive Council on all matters that the Executive Council actually deals with, and they prepare the agenda of the meeting of the Executive Council before they meet, just like the Executive Council prepare the agenda of the meeting of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government. And also they monitor the implementation of AU budget by the African Union Commission, and also monitor the implementation of all policy, decision, and agreement that is being made by member states of AU to ensure that the aims and objectives of the organization is being achieved. Now we'll be looking at the African Union Commission, which is the engine room of the organization. The African Union Commission is being headed by a chairperson, and the chairperson serves as the executive officer, legal representative, as well as the chief accounting officer of the commission. The AU commission is like the secretariat of the organization, and the chairperson also can be equated to the secretary general as some other international organization uses. And it is important to know that they provide the administrative support to all other organs of the African Union. The chairperson of the AU is being supported in the carrying out of his day-to-day activities and the managing of the organization by the deputy chairman and 8 commissioners. And these 8 commissioners are the ones that also head each of the 8 departments within the African Union Commission. And the chairman is being appointed for a 4-year term, and this term is renewable at the bequest of the Assembly of the Head of States and Government. Let's look at the function of the AU Commission, which can also be said to be the functions of the chairperson of the African Union Commission. The first one is providing operational support to all organs of the organization. They make sure that all the organs of the organization, they provide them with administrative support, logistic support, financial support that they may need, as the commission is the one in charge of resources and funds of the organization. Also, assisting member states in the implementation of AU programs and agendas, also acting as the custodian of all AU legal instruments, and also representing and defending of AU interests within the continent of Africa or among other states around the world, and also drafting of AU common position and coordinating member state action in international negotiation. It is important to know that after the creation of the AU, most of African countries or African states in international negotiation talks with one voice, and it is the AU Commission that draft the agenda and monitor the position and ensure that each independent state within Africa also stand with the position of other countries or other member states, and also they collaborate with other regional organizations to actualize the development of African continent, and also they are the one that prepares the budget of the African Union, their annual budget. They prepare the annual budget and send it for the Executive Council for scrutiny and approval, and onward sending to the Assembly of Head of State and Government for final approval and implementation order. Also, we look at the Peace and Security Council. The Peace and Security Council of the AU can be equated to the Security Council of the United Nations, as we all know. This is the standing decision-making organ of AU for the prevention, management, and resolution of conflict within African states. And this organ came into operation in the year 2004, which is important to know that that was after the transformation of the organization from OAU to AU. That was when this organ of the organization was being created, and it was created by an unanimous decision of the Assembly of Head of States and Government. And the council comprises of 15 members who has equal voting power, and for continuity purpose, 10 members are appointed for a period of 2 years, while 5 were appointed for a period of 3 years, which means that as members comes and go, some of them will meet each other during their tenure to ensure that proper continuation of policy and activity is being achieved. Then we'll be looking at another important and crucial organs of AU, which is the Specialized Technical Committee. This Specialized Technical Committee comprises of minister or head of agency of different parastatal and ministries of member states. For example, now, like the Finance Committee will comprise the Minister of Finance or someone of equivalent position in every other member state. This committee comes together to look at areas of concern within their specialized area, and they serve as an important policy making and advisory council to the African Union, because they are professionals in their field, and they are the one that will implement majority of the policy and decision that is being made by the AU in their respective countries. Lastly, we will be looking at the judicial, human rights and legal organ of AU. AU does not have a single legal or judiciary arm. They have several institutions within themselves, or several organs that is given the responsibility of overseeing the human rights issue, legal issue that is among member nations or that is affecting the organization itself, and also the judicial and the education of decision and judicial proceeding for the organization. The part of these organizations include African Commission on Human Rights and People's Rights, African Court on Human and People's Rights, Extraordinary African Chamber, the African Union Commission on International Law, the AU Advisory Board Against Corruption, and African Committee of Experts on Rights and Welfare of Children. All these organizations perform both education functions and advisory functions to all member states, the organization itself, and also citizens of different countries in Africa. Then lastly, we'll be looking at the African Union Foundation. These are the organ of the organization that is established to mobilize domestic resources for the actualization of development of African continent. The key priority of the foundation is to advocate for the partnership with private sector to achieve inclusive economic growth and development, the growth of African businesses, which is even to ensure that private businesses and private companies within the African continent prosper and do well. Also, inter-African trade and shared prosperity among nations. The purpose of this organization is to ensure that resources, both from the private and public sector, is being properly mobilized, is being properly utilized, and is being properly coordinated in ensuring that development is being achieved within the African continent. This foundation is being headed by the chairman of the African Union Commission, who also serves as the chairman of the council. It is important to know that the African Union Foundation is being headed by a chairman, and the chairperson of the African Union Commission, who is also the Secretary General, also serves as the chairman of the African Union Foundation, with the support of other important private individuals within the African continent, and even not only those within Africa, also Africans in diaspora are also encouraged to contribute to the foundation and also participate in its activities. Now we'll be looking at the practice question. We'll be looking at two practice questions today, and these questions are WAEC 2013 past question. The first one is, name any three former Secretary General of the AU or OAU. And when this question, it is important to know that African Union does not use the position of Secretary General, but the position of a chairperson, which means that this question is asking the student or the candidate to do what? To mention any three former chairperson of either the African OAU, which is the Organization of African Unity, or the current organization, which is AU, the African Union. Then the second question says, outline any four benefits Nigeria has derived from the AU or OAU. The answer to the first practice question, which is to name any three past chairperson of the African Union or Organization of African Unity, includes the Balotelli of Gambia, Nzo Egankaki of Cameroon, Edem Kojo of Togo, and William Eteki of Cameroon. These are 4 past chairpersons of either the Organization of African Unity or AU, and students can actually pick any 3 of them to answer the question. Then the second one, which is asking for the benefit Nigeria has derived or advantage of Nigerian membership. The question can be even reframed by asking the advantage of Nigerian membership in the organization include the hosting of African Summit, which occasioned the development of infrastructure within Nigeria. The second one is in 1967, African Development Bank that was established in 1967 has been given Nigerian government financial advice and also financial support. Also, the country has also getting grants and loan from the bank. Also, many Nigerians were employed in the service of the organization, which has provided finance and employment opportunity to Nigerian citizens. And also, lastly, the participation in international sport, in African game as a sport, and other socio-cultural activities of the organization has really impacted a lot on the life of Nigerians and their interaction with other citizens within African country. Thank you very much. That will be the end of today's lesson.
Eko Learners Support, a support program of the Lagos State Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education for WAEC and NECO candidates.
Through your contribution, comment, and observation, and you can actually do this by reaching out to us through the comment section or any of the social media handle that is displayed on the screen. Your feedback is very important to us. We'll be waiting to get it from you. Thank you very much.